All right. Well, my time is up, and so I wanted to introduce this wonderful group of women. We have two groups of women here today. We have four folks who are going to join the panel for me in just a moment, and then we've got an extended group who's also joining us for the networking session. These Googlers, as we call each other, are just phenomenal. They're an incredible group of women. Some I've had the luxury of working with in the past, like Diane Prescott, who she and I worked together at Microsoft, and she's now at Google as well, running business strategy and operations. And others that I'm just newly getting to work with, like Amy Bray. She is the global head of our cloud marketplace. Topaz Slater is what we call our people partner. She is my people partner on all things basically HR related for my business and our broader cloud organization in marketing. And then we have Tara Hernandez, who's also a partner of mine, who is in the developer relations organization, and she represents the engineering side of the house as a senior engineering manager. And so I thought it would be great to bring these four women on stage and just do a panel so you guys can hear more about Google. And we're really touching on three core areas today based on the feedback from registration and the feedback from Raisa and Shai in terms of putting this session on today. We have culture, which I'm going to ask Topaz and Tara to touch on today. We have talent, which I'm going to ask Topaz to go deeper on since that's her area of expertise. And then we have Amy and Diane, who are going to talk a lot about partnering and alliances and business development and how we think about our customer base. So with that, thank you. There's all my lovely ladies. All right, here we are. Awesome. So I'm going to start with a quick icebreaker, which I'd love for each of you guys to answer, and then we'll go out and we'll have some people answer the next questions. So I'm curious for you guys, what's something that you believed early in your career that you think about differently now than you did 5, 10, 15 years ago? And let's start with Amy. You're not on mute, so I'm going to start with you.
Uh-oh. That's what I get. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here, and welcome to everyone. I love this question. I just started a book called Untamed by Glennon Doyle, which I highly recommend folks check out. She also has an amazing podcast, but her podcast is called We Can Do Hard Things. And when I think about the younger version of myself, I was so intimidated to step outside my comfort zone. And what I've learned as I've become more confident and as I've taken on bigger challenges and been successful in them, that we can do hard things and we can step outside of our comfort zone and shine and find these opportunities to actually really tackle big challenges. So that is my takeaway of what I wish I knew a long time ago.
Are you good to go next?
Sure. This one will be amusing. I used to think I wasn't smart enough to work at Google. I was interviewed, or I was phone screened at Google back in the very early days, around, I want to say 2003 or 4. A lot of the engineers I had worked with at a company I had been at called Netscape Communications had gone off to Google and were part of the founding engineering team. And they're like, oh, you should go talk to Tara. She can do our build infrastructure. And I talked to the recruiter, and the first thing they said was, well, what was your grade point average? And I'm like, well, I went to UC Santa Cruz. We didn't do grades. Well, take a guess. I'm like, well, I wasn't a very good student. So I don't know, maybe a C. Like, I don't know, we only hire A students. And what, did you get a master's degree? Like, no. Now, Google was very notorious for this back in the day. And since I think it was 2014, there was a great article about how Google realized that their recruiting process was not actually resulting in the employees that they wanted. And I was like, well, that's great. Maybe they have a little bit more variety. And then when I got the recruiting call 4 years after that, was like, I don't think you guys want to hire me. I'm not smart enough. And yet here I am. So I think it's having both the confidence to recognize my own value as I've grown in my career. And then as an industry, we are also growing to understand that good employees can come from any type of background and any level of skill set. And there is no one signal that can tell us how good an employee is going to be and how much they can contribute.
Yeah.
I love that and agree. Topaz.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I think I'm gonna have to pull on work-life balance and work-life integration. I think when I started my career, it was all about kind of keeping to a certain set of hours and like figuring out how do you really find that work-life balance, especially very early on. And now I think the global pandemic, and because of the way in which we are all working differently today, has just kind of pressured us all to think about work-life balance differently. But now for me, it's like work-life integration. And I'm a mother of two, have a new 8-month-old baby, and so have been challenged in many new ways to make this new way of working work, and also just figure out how I balance that, and also can show up and just be, it's good enough. It doesn't have to be perfection. It's definitely all about being a perfectionist early on in my career, but I've learned that it's about work-life integration, and it's okay to take time to do work, send emails, and all of that kind of related thing when it works best for you. And so just kind of really living into that integration piece versus it having to be a balance, because it'll never be a perfect balance.
Love that. Madhuri Sharma earlier in the chat was talking about trying to balance being a full-time student and a full-time parent, and was coming here to network and learn some best practices on that. So I think you hit right on that, right? Around not trying to balance, but just trying to figure out how to integrate the two. And that's spot on. All right, Diane.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's fabulous to be here. So I will say that one thing that I thought early on is that you could have a plan, and that things might actually go according to a plan. And the last year has definitely proven to everyone that you can't have a plan. But in general, I would also say that the most interesting, meaty, like jobs that I have absolutely ever loved in my career were things that maybe didn't exist when I was graduating college, or that were entirely new and different as a type of work. And so the plan, like do the work, have the intention, but you have to also be super open to the opportunities that come, that you stumble across, and take the risk to embrace them, because the things that are scary usually are the things that drive the more impact, and usually aren't the things that you were planning for. And so, yeah, none of those plans worked out quite well I expected, but in a lot of ways, that's so for the best. So.
I love that. I love that. I do think when I look sort of at the past too, I think one of the things that was most helpful for me was one of my friends tapped me on the shoulder once and was like, "Why are you talking to yourself with such negative talk?" And I was like, "What?" She's like, "You've never talked to me that way." And it was, how do you enter a room and think everybody in this room is here to support me? And if you go in with that mindset that everyone is there to support you, you'll find that they actually are for the most part, right? And it's really your own self-talk that is the thing that deters a conversation one way or another. And so I always found that was such an interesting just mindset walking into a room, and the type of energy you bring when you walk into that room, right? And people can see your self-talk, even if you think you're talking to yourself, and your body language. And that was so powerful to me to realize, like, oh, that was just an entire mind shift in my own head, right? That was so awakening. All right, we're gonna go into the first section of topics called culture. And so this one was for Tara and Topaz, if you guys are okay to answer. I'd love for you just to give me an understanding, because you guys have both spent time at Google. What do you think, just to kind of just elaborate on what you think Google culture is like in like a sentence or two, and then what are we doing to really foster diversity, equity, and inclusion across the company?
Topaz, you first.
Of course. So I've been with Google for 2 years. Actually just celebrated what we call our Googleversaries, Google anniversary in June. And I have to throw a plug out. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, I would recommend you looking at our diversity report that we publish on an annual basis. There is amazing information in there where we share our progress on all of our DEI commitments. And what I love about what I've seen at Google, and how I see that we look at DEI, is that there's an understanding that there is still so much work to do in this space. We are always learning, and we approach this work with that in mind. And the way we back up the work and the way we kind of substantiate the commitments that we make is by getting advice from trusted advisors and experts, by using a lot of data and lots of empathy when we think about how this work impacts not only internally our employees, but our customers and the world, all around the world that we're trying to impact. When we think about building our products and the solutions that meet the needs of those users, it's the diverse mix of Googlers that we have in our organization and on the teams that build the products that really make them meet the needs of our users. And so what that means is that having Googlers with different backgrounds, perspectives, experiences to make up those teams or to be a part of those teams is where we really focus our attention. We also focus our efforts on building a more diverse Google through how we find talent and hiring Googlers from groups that have been historically underrepresented in the technical industry. So like today, getting the chance to spend time with all of the amazing women in this event, as well as communities like our Black, Latinx, Hispanic, veterans, people with disabilities. I have to say, I'll pause and I'll let you talk, Tara, but I'm just so proud to work for a company that doesn't just talk the talk, but we actually walk the walk, and we continue to find new ways of embedding DEI in everything that we do. And just like one example I'll use is how we embed DEI in our benefits, and to throw kind of a shout out in honor of Pride Month, just to highlight that we recently changed our healthcare policy to add in an addition to offer additional coverage for same-sex spouses and partners. We cover the cost of additional taxes for same-sex couples on that healthcare, and just a number of other benefits around that. And we're continuing to review and make improvements. I couldn't be more proud to be involved in this work and be able to speak about it and the efforts that Google makes. Tara, hand it over to you.
I'll have to follow that. So, I think we can acknowledge that, Google's a huge company, and usually when you see things in this vein, it's bad press, right? And bad news sells. And like many companies, that has been a challenge at Google. But I think it's also really important to call out what I think are the values that Google brings. From a technical perspective, Google reveres the idea of innovation. This idea of how do we further bring anyone's ideas to market. And sometimes, that results in a lot of Google products that get launched, then maybe they get deprecated. That's a whole other discussion. Sorry, reader, we remember you. But, we look at things like, let's talk about like Byteboard. Byteboard was a spinoff that Google has sponsored, that was spun off by two women who said, how can we improve the accessibility of the technical interview process? And so now it's a service that simplifies for some people their ability to express what their technical capabilities are without going through the dreaded whiteboard interview, which with pandemic has increased in difficulty for many people. And this has hugely enabled women to more successfully participate, right? This is something that Google has invested in. These two women are like, we have an idea, Google invested in it, and now it has gone to market. The other thing I think is worth calling out, that Google really believes in the idea that good ideas can not only come from anywhere, but good technical practitioners can also come from anywhere. I was on a panel for Google Women engineering interns a couple of years ago. And one of the other women on a panel was a software developer who had started out in HR, right, at Google. And so she was given the support and the space to develop her technical skills, and she moved into software development, which, as many of you know, it's very difficult to become a software developer at Google. Another example within the Cloud DevRel organization in particular, we have an ongoing partnership with a bootcamp program. So, to help women who are maybe reentry or switching industries. We also internally have what's known as the Developer Academy, again, to try and foster opportunities for people who are interested in changing their careers, moving into the technical space, because again, Google has this cultural focus on innovation, and that innovation can and should come from a variety of sources, right? That idea of diversity, it's not just an ethical thing. It is what is critical for us to succeed as a business, and it is critical for us to succeed as an industry, right? There are 7 billion people in the world, and we are not all the same. And we're not all going to do the same things, purchase the same service, have the same needs. So the more that we have that representation in our employee base, the more we're able to engage the world the way that we try to engage the world.
I love that. And you guys actually already hit on the second topic of talent and hiring. So I think, especially given the time, we've got about 8 minutes left, we'll switch over to how to partner on the alliance and business development side with Diane and Amy, if you guys are okay with that. And then at the end, if we've got moments, we can circle back to a last question I have for each of you guys. Okay, so for Diane and Amy, I'm curious from your perspective. There's lots of folks on here who are interested in learning how to partner with Google. There's lots of opportunities and tons of businesses. So I'm wondering, Amy, if you can just touch on, I know we talked about partner advantage, just maybe even give an example of what you've seen Google do for their partners, or a way in which people can engage Google on the cloud side from a partner standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely do that. You know, the first thing, the link that Gina shared, and she said this, but just to reiterate, on the Google Cloud side, we've got a really rich partner program called Partner Advantage. And it's really easy to become a Google Cloud partner. So you start at the member level, and you can literally do it within minutes via the Partner Advantage portal. So I highly recommend you all check that out. The cool thing about Partner Advantage is that it has a very easy user journey for you partners to help figure out how to move through our ecosystem and start to engage in a more meaningful way. So that's a great starting place on the cloud side. Another thing that I'll share, so I work on the marketplace team, and in the marketplace, we really have this vision that our marketplace should be as diverse and rich as Tara and Topaz were sharing with our candidates and our employees and our customers. And so we have this vision that the marketplace also needs to be a place with deep diversity and different types of solutions and different types of assets. And so we're really using the Google mission about making sure that we're providing information to all of our users that's helpful, using that as a guiding principle in how we build out our products. So that's a great place as well for partners to start to engage in our marketplace. And it's a great way to get access to our customers, and also just a way to surface information. So definitely start with Partner Advantage and move through that journey. And then the last thing that I'll share, Gina, and then hand it over to Diane, is for folks here that are part of startups or smaller either tech companies or even, you know, user consumer companies, there are tons that you can partner with Google. And so again, we're super dedicated to making sure that our services are accessible for everyone. So you can start with Grow with Google, which is a great place to start. And there's lots of opportunities to partner through that. Diane, I'll hand it to you.
And Diane, I'm going to actually ask you a question on the customer side. You do strategy and operations, so you get to see, Amy kind of covers off on the partner side, and you get to see sort of the customer landscape and the types of opportunities there are for partners who are on this call. Can you just give us an understanding of the customer landscape and you know, how we're thinking about industry and anything that you think is interesting for this audience to understand more about how we approach our customer base?
Absolutely. And it's super interesting because there is a fascinating tension with cloud and cloud platform has been, you know, what, we're coming up on 15 years since Amazon first launched, for example, and yet it is still a relatively tiny percentage of all of IT spend. There is so much growth still to come. And as part of that, I think the application modernization approach, how are companies able to re-architect applications to better take into account serverless technologies and dynamic scale, leverage the benefits of doing integration of vertical and horizontal scale databases. Google's reputation and experience with databases and data analytics is phenomenal. And so we see a lot of demand from customers around being able to really take control of that data estate, leverage the learnings across a bunch of different types of data. And so the ability to make sure that our customers are able to modernize and able to take advantage of those new technologies, and also things like Kubernetes and serverless, which are part of modern app architectures, is really critical, because there is a vast estate of applications on-prem with old hardware in old architectures that have an incredible opportunity to add more value to organizations, to take data from silos into data lakes and other data structures so that you can get that broad access to it. And so it seems on the one hand, especially if you've been in cloud for a while, that it's old hat and everybody's doing it, but it is still super early, and there's a huge opportunity also to help people ramp up on skilling and understand those technologies. So if you're a partner that's helping customers do the modernization, do migration, and also partners that are helping people learn those skills to be able to build modern cloud applications, there's a lot of support for all of those through Google.
Great. So I'm going to put you guys on the spot with one surprise question. And it's a question I get asked every time I talk to somebody, which is, if in one word or one sentence, what do you love best about working for Google? Or you can say, what word do you think best represents Google at large?
Well,
I'll take the one.
Okay. No, please.
I'll take the one sentence. I am never bored.
I'll do a one sentence. I adore my coworkers.
I'll build on that one sentence. I love being able to work with the brilliant minds that are my fellow coworkers.
Yeah. I'll push myself and do the one word. My word is kindness. And I have never worked with people that really genuinely lead with kindness.
Oh yeah.
Any place else like Google.
Yeah.
Good. I love that. I think that's it's so true. I've always just admired from Google from afar in terms of its tenacity and its altruism and its notion of being of service to its communities that it supports. I just think that's just phenomenal, and that just sort of speaks to my heart about how do you be of service to those around you. And I love that. But Amy, I think your word of kindness, it blew me away coming to Google. And again, it was this notion of everybody starts with, how can I help?
Yeah.
Or the other great thing is, okay, so what does the customer want? We always agree, like we may not always agree on how to get something done, but we agree that it always starts with the customer. And it takes all the debate out front of like, why are we even doing this? Because if the customer needs it and there's a market need for it, that just sort of dissolves all of the friction around, and everyone just joins forces to go do the right thing for the customer. And in that case, the customer can be a partner or an individual or a customer organization. But I love that. I just really, it just sort of speaks to my heart every time I think when somebody asks me that question, and it's such a common question I get. So you guys are amazing at letting me cold call on you and put you on the spot. I appreciate that immensely. We have about 1 minute left. Do you guys have any parting words for the audience or anything else you feel like you'd like to share with this group, knowing it's a vibrant community of women trying to do great in the world and bring their ideas to life?
One thing I'd like to just call out, and it kind of builds on what Diane was saying, which is the cloud itself. And the thing that makes me want to be in Google Cloud more than any other organization in the Google ecosystem is the cloud itself is inherently a force for inclusion. It used to be that you had to know, in the case of Google, somebody who had a garage space that they were willing to rent you. You had to be able to have the credit cards to max out at the store to buy the hardware that you needed in order to start a company. Now you can pay for resources by the second. You can do development on your mobile phone, which is actually the number one way development happens in Africa, for example. I recently read an article about that. And that itself, lowering the bar for how we can support entrepreneurs and new businesses using cloud as a platform is, I think, one of the most transformative and powerful things about it. And I'm proud to be part of Google Cloud for that reason.
I have to throw a shameless plug. We do have a member of our staffing team with us today, Marina Bogle. So if anything we've talked about hits home and inspires you, please seek her out and join her table when you can.
Excellent. All right. Thank you guys so much for being on the panel. Folks in the audience, I hope you enjoyed it. These are an amazing group of women, and our networking group of women is also equally wonderful. So thank you for being here with us, panel, and look forward to having you guys in the networking session. And I will turn it back over to Raisa for the next section on the Solution Showcase.
All right. Thank you so much, ladies. What a great conversation. I saw the chat was lighting up, just responding. I was firing away links for all of those things you recommended. I'm really looking forward to diving deeper there. And I know that the people that are joining us today are so excited to get to the part of networking. So while we go on to the Cloud Solution Showcase, ladies, all you have to do is just click mic off, camera off, and it will take you off the stage.